A young man is berated by his boss in the office. The manager's face is a mask of pure contempt. All our boy can do is bow his head and take it. His colleagues watch from a distance, offering no help. The final order is given. Have it done by tomorrow. He turns away, his spirit clearly broken. Looks like another all-nighter fueled by caffeine and despair. But his quiet suffering is interrupted. He looks up, startled by the sudden call. The boss returns, handing him yet another task. He tries to protest, mentioning his urgent deadline, but his pleas are met with a shove and more blame. The manager wears a cruel, self-satisfied smirk. Defeated, he can only offer another apology. He steps out into the night, the weight of his job on his shoulders. He reflects on his quiet life and where it has led him. He remembers a time when he had more fight in him, but now he feels he lacks the energy to escape. A young girl runs past, calling out for her mother. A woman calls after her, telling her not to wander off. The mother warns her child of the dangers of the dark. He watches this simple, happy moment with a wistful smile, but a strange creaking sound from above breaks the peace. He looks up, trying to identify the source. High above, a steel beam snaps from its support. His eyes widen in absolute horror. The massive piece of steel plummets to the ground. He sees the little girl is directly in its path. Without a second thought, he shoves her to safety, and the beam crashes down right where he stood. The little girl lands hard, but she's clear of the danger. She looks back in tears, safe but terrified. Chaos erupts as onlookers scream in panic. They stare in disbelief, realizing someone was crushed. The mother cries out in horror, calling for help. Beneath the wreckage, our boy's life fades away. He wonders if, in his final moments, he was useful. His hand falls, lifeless, to the cold pavement. As rain begins to fall, his eyes lose their focus. His last thought echoes in the silence. He doesn't want to die. The world dissolves into a downpour of gray. He opens his eyes, confused, in a muddy puddle. But this isn't his world anymore. The scene is one of carnage and ruin, so not heaven then. He looks down to find his hands bound in chains. He struggles against the cold, heavy iron. He realizes he's trapped inside a cage. Suddenly, a monstrous foot slams the ground before him. He looks up into the face of a nightmare. A towering ogre points an accusing finger at him. His mind struggles to process the impossible sight. The beast seems to blame him for the wreckage. It raises a hand the size of a boulder. Chained and terrified, he can't even run. The chain around his ankle suddenly goes taut. The ogre yanks him off his feet with incredible force. He's whipped through the air like a toy. The chain wraps tight around his throat. He's slammed back into the mud, gasping for air. He can only wonder if this is all just a terrible dream. A burning heat spreads through his entire body. He realizes with dread that he's about to die again. But a strange power suddenly erupts from his hand. A brilliant column of light shoots into the rainy sky. The ogre pauses, momentarily stunned by the flash. The beam of energy strikes the monster in the face. Its massive foot freezes just inches from crushing him. He can only stare, wondering what just happened. The beast recoils, clutching its now injured arm. He tries to summon the power again, focusing his will. But this time, his outstretched hand does nothing. The mysterious energy refuses to answer his call. Looks like a one-hit wonder. Suddenly, a hooded figure leaps into the fray. Her blade connects with the ogre's head with brutal force. Our boy is just along for the very violent ride. His eyes widen, seeing the flash of red from her blade. As the chain goes slack, a hand reaches out to catch him. His rescuer is the mysterious swordswoman. She assesses him, surprised to find him alive, though he's clearly on the verge of death's door, again. A second woman arrives, offering to heal his wounds. The warrior with the eye patch agrees to save the boy's life. The healer confirms that she can help him. The group decides to take the unconscious boy with them. The swordswoman seems less than thrilled to be carrying him. Her companion insists it's her duty since she saved him. With that settled, they leave the fallen beast behind. He's brought to a safe, unfamiliar building. He wakes sometime later, tucked into a warm bed. His wounds have been treated, but he's still dazed. He sits in silence, trying to piece everything together. A sudden jolt of awareness hits him. He's not alone. The eye patch-wearing warrior is watching him. He stammers, asking where this strange place is. She calmly informs him that he's in their home. A grand mansion, a far cry from the muddy battlefield. He bows his head in gratitude, a familiar, ingrained habit. She accepts his thanks, a little surprised by his formality. But then he asks about his body. A strange question. His words catch her completely off guard. He panics, realizing his body has somehow shrunk. She's confused, thinking he's talking about his injuries. Desperate for answers, he begs for a mirror. She points to one, probably thinking he's delirious. He stumbles out of bed to face his reflection. The face staring back is not a man's, but a child's. It's not just a dream, he's been de-aged. And with that realization, a flood of memories returns. Not his memories, but the boy's whose body he now inhabits. He remembers being sold by his own father for a bag of coins. He recalls the cold bars of a cage, and the violent crash that must have ended the boy's life. The truth settles in with crushing weight. He's been reincarnated into another world. His rescuer snaps him out of it, asking if he hit his head. A very reasonable question, all things considered. He looks up, startled by her sudden proximity. She grabs his chin, forcing him to meet her gaze. She checks his eyes, making sure he's still with her. She seems to conclude he's just shaken, not broken. Just then, the healer returns, interrupting the intense moment. The healer introduces herself first as Alice Enlil. The eye patch warrior is Rico, who has no family name. They turn to our boy, waiting for his introduction. But he hangs his head in silence. He has no name. Rico asks why he can't tell them who he is. Alice realizes his name may have been taken from him. She explains that slaves are often stripped of their names, a grim but apparently common practice. Alice offers to give him a new one, putting Rico on the spot. The warrior seems to be struggling with the sudden responsibility. The boy looks up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Rico scoffs, saying she'd just pick something random. He insists that anything would be better than nothing. Just then, the sound of rain outside catches her attention. An idea sparks in the warrior's mind. She declares his new name will be Rain. He repeats the name, tasting the sound of it. Rain. Alice thinks it's a simple but fitting name. Rico just shrugs, admitting she's not very creative. With that settled, Alice asks Rain what he plans to do now. He's stunned, having never been asked what he wanted before. Alice offers to take him to a nearby town to start over. Rain looks at his reflection, grateful for his life, but he questions what he can do in this small body. He looks up at the two women who saved him. He remembers the boy's lonely, terrifying past. The thought of being alone again is unbearable. He makes a bold request. He wants to stay with them. The two women are taken aback by his plea. He remembers the strange power that erupted from his hand. He resolves to become an adventurer to earn his place here. Alice notes that fortunately, the boy seems to have some talent. She suggests they train him just enough so he can survive on his own. Rico grins, reminding Alice it's her duty since she saved him. Alice can only sigh in weary agreement. She decides they'll look after him until he can become an adventurer. Rico turns to Rain, giving him the final choice, stay or go. Rain is completely floored by the question. With his memories still a mess, the outside world is terrifying. He clenches his fist, knowing he has no other option. He looks at the grand house, his only sanctuary in this new world. He begs them to let him stay, echoing his last thought, I don't want to die. To his surprise, Rico simply agrees. Rain can hardly believe his luck. But their moment of peace is shattered by a sudden alarm. Alice senses it too. They're no longer alone. A hulking shadow appears outside, drawn to their location. Looks like they brought home a stray. A powerful tremor sends them all flying. Rico catches herself, clearly annoyed by the interruption. The trio rushes to the door to face the new threat. Rain stares out into the storm, his voice trembling. A monstrous gigant cyclops has found them. Alice realizes it must be the offspring of the ogre they killed. The beast lets out a furious, vengeful roar. Rain is frozen in terror at the impossible sight. The Cyclops raises its massive club, ready to attack. It brings the weapon crashing down towards the mansion. Rain shuts his eyes, bracing for the inevitable. But a memory flashes through his mind, saving the little girl. He remembers the feeling of his life slipping away in the rain. Rico pulls him back, but his instincts scream to protect, not hide. Alice is stunned by Rain's sudden, reckless move. Rico shouts at him, demanding to know what he's doing. But Rain is resolved. This time, he will be the protector. He focuses his will, calling on that strange power once more. A brilliant flash of light erupts from his hands. The blast intercepts the club, stopping it dead in its tracks. He gasps for breath, amazed that it actually worked. But the effort completely drains him of his strength. His small body gives out, and he collapses to the floor. Rico stares in disbelief at the kid's raw magical talent. Alice notes that his power is impressive, if a little unrefined. The two women gather around the exhausted boy. She explains that he's suffering from magical exhaustion. He's told to rest while his energy recovers. But their problem hasn't gone away. The monster is still standing. Rain grits his teeth, determined to protect his new guardians. Alice offers him a kind, reassuring smile. The Cyclops roars, preparing for another devastating strike. It brings the massive weapon down upon them once more. Rain can only brace himself for the inevitable impact. But Alice calmly holds out a hand, revealing glowing stones. A powerful barrier of magical chains springs up around them. Rain looks on, completely stunned by the display. Alice stands tall, declaring this beast is no match for them. He can't believe the power his saviors command. Rico tells him he's fought well, but it's their turn now. She promises to show him the true strength of his rescuer. Alice weaves another spell, summoning more chains to bind the beast. With a clench of her fist, she tightens their grip. The magical chains constrict, crushing the monster with immense force. Alice points at Rain, a confident smirk on her face. Rain can only stare, realizing the chains were pure magic. But Rico is already calling for her weapon. Alice casually agrees, tossing the massive blade to her. The sword materializes in Rico's waiting hands, with the beast still bound by Alice's spell. The warrior leaps into the fray. The monster can only roar in helpless fury. Rico lands with a splash, ready for the final blow. She soars through the air, blade held high. Her attack connects with devastating force. She grins, blaming the beast for messing up their garden. Now that's a priority. The impact sends a shockwave through the air. The massive blade slices clean through the monster's torso. Rain is left utterly speechless by the display. Rico lands without a scratch, her work complete. The beast is bisected in a single perfect strike. Its two halves crash to the ground, ending the threat. With the battle over, Rico explains the importance of real combat, but she decides his training can wait for now. First, she'll teach him the basics: swordsmanship and fitness. She admits her fighting style is self-taught and unrefined. So she tells Rain to learn by watching and copying her. She plants her blade in the ground as a demonstration. Rain points out that her target is just a giant rock. She retorts that if it exists, it can be cut. Simple as that. With a mighty swing, she unleashes her power. The sheer force of the blow startles the nearby wildlife. She casually remarks that was just a light swing. Behind her, the boulder and the very earth are split in two. Yeah, light swing. Rain can only stare in utter disbelief. He peers into the chasm, unable to see the bottom. Rico stands there, completely unfazed by the destruction. A massive chunk of rock tumbles into the abyss. She hands him a sword, telling him it's his turn. The boy looks down, his confidence completely gone. He tells her it's impossible for him to do the same. She tells him that swordsmanship is all about willpower. Taking her words to heart, he raises the blade. With a determined cry, he puts all his strength into the swing. His blade connects with the rock with a loud clang, but the only result is a painful jolt up his arms. Ouch. Rico notes that he didn't even leave a scratch. Rain hangs his head, saying this is what he expected, but Rico gently places a hand on his head. She tells him that unlike a real battle, this won't kill him. He looks up at her, a new resolve in his eyes. He grips the sword, determined to one day be as strong as her. He wonders if he'll ever wield that kind of power. Meanwhile, Alice leads him to a different training ground. She announces it's time for his magic lesson. She explains that he'll learn the same spells she uses. She raises her staff, gathering magical energy. She begins to chant the names of powerful spells. Rain watches, trying to follow the incantation. She unleashes the final command with a powerful shout. A colossal magic circle materializes in the sky. A pillar of pure energy descends from above. It slams into the ground with overwhelming force. The resulting explosion rocks the entire landscape. Rain can only stare, his jaw on the floor. He asks how she can wield such incredible power. Alice explains that's the bare minimum for a top-tier mage. The boy hangs his head, the goal seeming impossible. She tells him not to look so defeated already. Unlike Rico, she promises to teach him properly. Rain agrees, though her smile is a little intimidating. 1 month passes in a blur of grueling training. Rico's lessons are intense, to say the least. She doesn't hold back, forcing him to improve. He dodges and weaves, pushed to his absolute limit. He gasps for air, sweat pouring from his brow. Finally, his body gives out and he collapses. But even on the ground, his spirit isn't broken. He clenches his fist, frustrated by his own weakness. His eyes burn with a single thought. He must get stronger. At the end of the day, he stumbles back to the mansion. Rico is there to greet him upon his return. Alice welcomes him home with a warm smile. She notes that he looks completely exhausted. Rain apologizes, admitting he pushed himself until he collapsed. Rico tells him there's no need to apologize. Alice teases her for saying something so reasonable. She reminds Rain that rest is also a vital part of training. But the boy tries to protest, grabbing her cloak. He insists that he needs to become strong as fast as he can. Alice realizes he's trying not to be a burden. Rico seems to understand his desperation as well. Alice raises a hand, calling his name to get his attention. As his master, she gives him an order. Rest tomorrow. Rain tries to argue, still desperate to continue his training. But Alice simply asks if he intends to disobey a direct order. She tells him to get inside so they can wash off the day's grime. The boy is completely stunned by the unexpected kindness. A luxurious bath is drawn, steam rising from the water, but he finds himself flanked by both his mentors. Well, this isn't awkward at all. Flustered, he insists that he can wash himself. Alice tells him he's more exhausted than he realizes. She's worried he might pass out if left alone in the bath. Rico bluntly tells him to stop arguing and just accept it. Rain reflects on how different this feels. An order from Alice is nothing like the cruel demands of his former boss. Alice seems to notice his quiet, thoughtful expression. Rico decides that since they're all here, they might as well bathe together. Alice questions Rico's sudden appearance. She points out that the warrior usually despises bathing. Rico just claims she wanted to help her cute apprentice. A likely story. She lets out a hearty laugh, clearly enjoying herself. Alice gives her a knowing, amused smile. The simple act of care is too much for Rain, and tears well up in his eyes. He breaks down completely, overwhelmed by a warmth he's never known. Alice gently asks him what's wrong. Rico also looks on, concerned by his sudden outburst. Through his sobs, he explains that it's just so warm. Rico decides she's had enough of this emotional display. She grabs a nearby bucket of water with a stern look and promptly dumps it over his head. That's one way to snap someone out of it. She demands to know what he's crying for. Alice, however, takes a gentler approach, washing his back. She tells him there's no need to rush. His hard work is already clear to them. She tells him that even if he fails at everything, she and Rico will always accept him here. He remembers his old life, a world utterly devoid of such warmth. The simple kindness is enough to make him weep with relief. Rico asks if he's still crying, her tone gruff but caring. He quickly blames it on the soap getting in his eyes, a classic excuse. She just smirks, clearly not buying his excuse for a second. She admits she understands his desperate need to be stronger, but for now, his only job is to rest and eat. She tells him that's the fastest path to true strength. Alice watches on with a gentle, knowing smile.
Rain finally understands, accepting their care completely.
For the first time, he feels like he's part of a family. That night, he sleeps soundly, finally at peace. His new guardians watch over him, their duty fulfilled for the day. The seasons change, and the years begin to fly by. A new day dawns on the training grounds. A young man now stands where the boy once did. Rain has grown, his training relentless and fierce. He channels his will into the blade, just as Rico taught him. A single swing shatters a massive boulder to pieces. He lets out a breath, his power now second nature. In the blink of an eye, 10 years have passed. He admires his handiwork, a perfectly clean cut. He now stands as a master of the sword. But his training didn't stop there. He summons a staff, chanting the names of powerful spells. His eyes burn with focus, ready to unleash his fury. He calls upon a devastating spell, God's Execution. A pillar of divine judgment crashes down from the heavens. The ground is torn asunder, a testament to his overwhelming power. He looks up, satisfied with the results of his training. With a confident smile, he declares he's in top form today. His bag is packed. The time has finally come. He grips the strap, his resolve as firm as steel. After 10 long years, he is finally ready to leave the nest. He calls out his farewell to the empty woods. A winged creature swoops down to see him off, probably the family pet. It soars into the sky, a silent goodbye. From above, his home looks small, a sanctuary he must now leave behind. But he's not alone. His guardians watch from the balcony, wishing him well. Rain sets off on the long road, his future uncertain. He arrives in a bustling city, a world away from his quiet life. His first stop is to grab a bite to eat. An adventurer's gotta eat. He rests for the night, preparing for the next leg of his journey. But his travels are far from peaceful. He finds himself fending off a pack of monstrous wolves. He catches his breath, the fight taking more out of him than he'd like. He surveys the scene, making sure the threat is truly over. A sudden realization seems to hit him. He reflects that Rico would have ended this without a scratch. He still has a long way to go. He reports back to a merchant, confirming the monsters are dealt with. The man is overcome with relief and gratitude. He explains how his caravan was ambushed, and he'd given up all hope. Rain just smiles, brushing off the praise with humility. The merchant offers him a ride, asking if he's an adventurer. Rain sheepishly admits he's not one. Yet, he explains his true destination, the Adventurer's Academy. The man tells him the academy is in the capital, a truly massive place. But he offers a word of warning. The entrance exam is said to be brutal. Rain takes the merchant's warning in stride. The man laughs, guessing our boy is from the countryside, but he's confident that with Rain's skills, passing the exam will be easy. Just then, their destination comes into view on the horizon. Rain is left speechless by the sheer scale of the capital city. This is the Aldeon Kingdom, home to the world's most prestigious adventurers' academy. He thanks the merchant for bringing him all this way. The man insists it was his pleasure, offering his services again in the future. As the wagon departs, Rain waves a final goodbye. Now it's time to see what this city has to offer. He wanders the streets, a country boy in a sprawling metropolis. He reflects that this is his first time in a real city since his reincarnation, but his sightseeing is cut short by a sudden commotion. A man sprints past screaming that a monster has broken loose. He warns everyone to run for their lives, but he can only watch in confusion as Rain runs toward the chaos. A terrified woman is cornered by a vicious griffin. The beast snarls, ready to strike its helpless prey, but Rain arrives just in time, pushing the woman out of harm's way. He sizes up his opponent, noting his bad luck with monsters today. He wonders where the city's adventurers are to handle this. He spots a few nearby who seem content to just watch. Great. Paid spectators. Rain grits his teeth, knowing he can't just let people get hurt. The scene shifts to a memory of a conversation with Alice. She sits on his bed, giving him a final piece of advice. She warns him that his techniques are a perfect blend of hers and Rico's. Rain realizes this could expose their identities to anyone who knows them. He asks if this is connected to why they live in seclusion. Alice confirms his suspicion with a somber look. She explains they became too famous, making powerful enemies along the way. He listens with a worried expression, the weight of her words sinking in. Alice warns him to live quietly once he reaches the capital. Rain protests, saying he can't take the top spot at the academy that way. She reassures him, telling him not to worry about holding back. Her final order is to lay low until the first exam unless it's an emergency. She even tells him not to go all out during the entrance exam, much to his concern. But she has absolute faith that her and Rico's student won't fail. Rain can only sweat, noticing her smile doesn't quite reach her eyes. Nothing like a little friendly pressure. The memory fades, and Rain decides this definitely counts as an emergency. He braces for impact as the griffin lunges forward. But he's not alone. A blonde swordswoman suddenly joins the fight. Rain is completely stunned by her unexpected arrival. She parries the beast's attack with a flash of her blade. The two now stand together, cornering the monstrous griffin. Rain deflects a powerful swipe from the creature's wing. The blonde girl looks on, surprised by his skill. He can only wonder who his mysterious new ally is. The crowd recognizes her instantly, cheering for the Silver Sword Princess. Well, so much for laying low. The princess offers a confident, almost shy smile. She moves in again, her blade clashing against the beast's hide. With a single clean strike, she severs the griffin's wing. She seems surprised by her own strength, cutting through bone so easily. She turns, wondering about the boy who just fought beside her. The crowd swarms her, celebrating their hero. Rain and the woman he saved watch from a distance. The princess looks around, a thoughtful expression on her face. She turns back to the crowd, trying to explain that she had help. An older man insists on rewarding her, but she politely refuses. She explains she has an entrance exam to get to. Meanwhile, Rain slips away unnoticed, waving a silent farewell. The life of an unsung hero. He lets out a sigh of relief, the danger now past. He figures with a hero like her around, he wasn't really needed. But the princess looks around, searching for her mysterious ally. She wonders if the boy who fought beside her is an adventurer. Rain just smiles. The outside world is more interesting than he thought. With the excitement over, he finally heads for his destination. He feels a new resolve. He too will become stronger. Meanwhile, back home, Alice wonders if Rain has arrived safely. Rico asks if she's lonely now that the kid is gone. She admits it had become normal to have him around. Alice agrees, calling the strange quietness a form of loneliness. Rico turns the question back on her mentor. Alice tries to brush it off, saying it's nothing. But she can't deny it. She's lonely too. She reflects that even the strongest heroes are still human. But she smiles, looking forward to seeing Rain's success. Rico shares a quiet, knowing smile with her. Back in the capital, Rain's journey is just beginning. He arrives at the Aldeon Adventurers Academy. He can only stare at the sheer scale of the campus. But a familiar face suddenly catches his eye. The Silver Sword Princess is walking right towards him. She recognizes him instantly from the griffin attack. Rain tries to play dumb, hoping to avoid attention. Good luck with that. But she's not buying it, calling him out for his act. She notes his skill and asks if he's also here for the exam. He thinks to himself that he was wondering the exact same thing. He can sense her power. She's at least B rank already. His trained eye sees the proof of a lifetime of training. The princess gets flustered, telling him it's rude to stare. Rain quickly apologizes, explaining it's a habit from his training. She smiles, noting that he doesn't seem like a bad person. She introduces herself as Snow Charleal and asks for his name. He replies that he's just Rain with no family name to speak of. Snow offers to walk with him to the exam hall. They make their way through the Grand Academy grounds. Other students immediately recognize the Silver Sword Princess, wondering who the boy with her is. Rain notices all the unwanted attention they're attracting. Snow asks if he feels like they're being watched. You think? He forces a smile, thinking it would be scarier if they weren't. She lets out an embarrassed laugh, apologizing for the trouble. He's surprised by how talkative she is. Snow admits that she's a little bit famous. She offers to walk separately if it's making him uncomfortable. But Rain just smiles, saying he's used to being watched. He changes the subject, asking about her famous nickname. He plays the country boy card, claiming he doesn't know much. Snow seems embarrassed, admitting she's not a fan of the title. She explains it's simply because of her silver hair. Rain agrees her hair is beautiful, so the name makes sense. His simple compliment sends her into a flustered panic. Rain can only conclude that she might be a bit of an airhead. They continue on, approaching a sign with exam information. Snow explains the exam halls are divided by applicant number. She's in venue A and asks which one he's in. Rain pulls out his registration form to check. He smiles, announcing that he's been assigned to venue B. It seems their paths will diverge for now. Snow extends a hand, wishing him luck in the exam. Rain agrees, his expression filled with determination. He takes her hand, sealing their friendly pact. But she's stunned by the calloused strength in his grip. Rain simply asks if something is the matter. She quickly brushes it off, trying to hide her surprise. They arrive at the exam venue, a massive coliseum. Rain can only marvel at the sheer scale of the place. The other applicants wait in the stands, ready for the test. He heads up the stairs to find a place to sit. But he's suddenly shoved from behind without warning. An arrogant-looking young man tells him to move it. Rain looks up, completely caught off guard by the aggression. The man glares down at him with pure disdain. Rain points out there are plenty of other seats available. The bully tells him to shut his mouth and not talk back. He says the mere sight of a peasant like Rain is irritating. Ah, classic bully logic. His lackey introduces him as Grand Spencer, a magical genius. His other friend chimes in, telling Rain to get lost. Rain just sighs, thinking they're a bunch of walking cliches. The trio laughs, mocking him for his simple appearance. Deciding it's not worth the trouble, Rain agrees to move. He finds another seat, keeping his distance from the group. He can't help but think what a strange bunch they are. Suddenly, a voice calls for everyone's attention. An examiner introduces herself as Hannah Fian. She gets straight to the point, explaining the exam's details. Gran and his friends listen with bored expressions. She announces the test for Venue B will now begin. The exam will be a series of one-on-one duels. She explains that by choosing this venue, they've chosen a specific test. The only way to pass is to achieve victory. Simple, brutal, and to the point. Rain recalls his mentors, realizing he didn't exactly choose this venue. The rules are simple: win by any means necessary, surrender, incapacitation, or death. The examiner calls for the first combatants to enter the arena. She calls out the numbers, 33 and 45. Rain looks down at his registration, a little surprised. His number is 45, looks like he's up first. He makes his way down the long stairs to the arena floor. He steps out into the massive, sunlit coliseum, and he sees his opponent is none other than Grand Spencer. What a coincidence. The bully greets him with a condescending smirk. He promises to make Rain regret ever coming here. Rain just finds the guy's constant chatter annoying. The examiner officially announces the start of the duel. With a sharp command, she signals for the fight to begin. Gran immediately attacks, calling it a simple warm-up. He unleashes a fireball spell in the shape of a dragon. Rain recognizes the magic, but notes it's nothing like Alice's. He watches the fiery beast approach, completely unfazed. He sidesteps the attack with ease, calling the spell crude. He thinks to himself that Alice could level the whole arena with this. Gran is stunned that the country boy dodged his attack. He grits his teeth, promising the next one won't miss. He unleashes a volley of 4 fireballs this time. He screams that he'll burn Rain to a crisp. But Rain just stands his ground as the spells close in. Gran's face twists in utter disbelief. In a flash, Rain has closed the distance between them. His eyes are cold, his focus absolute. He lands a single decisive strike. The examiner declares the winner, number 45. Rain scratches his head, wondering if he might have overdone it just a little. The scene shifts, explaining the life of an adventurer. Now in his new school uniform, Rain reflects on his new path. This is the Aldeon Adventurers Academy, the best in the world. He sits in class, relieved that he somehow managed to pass. He shudders, recalling the intense lecture he got from the examiner. A cheerful voice greets him, breaking his reverie. He looks up, happy to see his new acquaintance, Snow. She's glad to see he made it into the academy as well. Snow confidently states that her own success was never in doubt. Rain asks if she's not happy about passing. She explains this is just a stepping stone. Her real goal is the top spot. Rain grins, declaring that makes them rivals for the #1 position. He agrees, though his nervous expression hints at a few complications. Snow declares that even as friends, she won't show him any mercy. The word friend catches Rain completely off guard. He sheepishly admits he's never had a friend before. Snow can only wonder what kind of secluded life he's lived. Just then, the classroom door slides open with a bang. A familiar, arrogant face steps into the room. He lets out an annoyed scoff, clearly in a foul mood. It's none other than Gran Spencer, his first opponent. Well, this won't be awkward. Snow is surprised, realizing he also passed the exam. Rain is confused since he was pretty sure he won their match. She asks if he was the one who defeated Gran in the duel. Rain confirms, stating the rules were clear. The winner passes. Snow speculates that the Spencer family likely pulled some strings to get him in. Rain just sighs, deciding it doesn't matter since he passed anyway. But Snow looks at him with newfound respect, impressed by his power. Rain just yawns, thinking the same thing about the Silver Sword Princess. The classroom door slides open, signaling the start of the day. Their new teacher stands before them, waiting for silence. She introduces herself as Hannah Fian, their homeroom instructor. She warns them the next 3 years will be brutal, and some may not survive. But for those who do, a glorious life as an adventurer awaits. She asks for their cooperation with a smile that's a little too sharp. Snow whispers that the life of an adventurer is always dangerous. With the pleasantries over, Hannah announces the first lesson. Nothing like a little mortality talk to kick off the school year. She orders the entire class to the training grounds. Rain is surprised they're jumping straight into practical training. Snow confirms his suspicions. This academy doesn't waste time. They arrive in a vast, stone-pillared training hall. Rain notes that they're deep underground. He's suddenly shoved from behind, caught completely off guard. Gran and his friends push past, calling him a country bumpkin. The bully glares back, vowing he'll never forgive Rain. Snow dryly notes that he's made a powerful enemy already. Suddenly, a massive stone golem materializes before them. Hannah explains their first test is a combat exercise against this golem. She tells them any method of fighting is permitted. The objective is simple: defeat the golem in under 5 minutes. A nervous student asks what the penalty for failure is. Hannah smiles, promising intensive after-school lessons for anyone who fails. Gran scoffs, clearly unimpressed by the challenge. Rain can't help but notice her smile is eerily similar to Alice's. Snow steps forward, volunteering to take the test first. The instructor agrees, calling the Silver Sword Princess to the floor. Snow turns to Rain, telling him to watch her true power. He nods, his expression serious and focused. With a burst of speed, she charges toward her stony opponent. With a sharp command, Hannah signals for the test to begin. The stone golem lurches forward, its heavy fists raised. Snow uses its arm as a springboard, launching herself into the air. Rain can only watch, impressed by her incredible agility. Mid-air, she begins to chant a powerful ice spell. Her eyes are cold with focus, her will absolute. A wave of frost spreads across the golem, freezing it solid. She lands perfectly, her trap now set. With a single command, she prepares to shatter her icy prison. The ice cracks and explodes with devastating force. The golem is completely obliterated in the blast. Well, that was fast. Hannah is impressed, noting her skill with intermediate magic. The other students whisper in awe of the Silver Sword Princess. Snow turns to Rain, a confident smile on her face. She challenges him to show her what he's capable of. Rain accepts, a determined look in his eyes. But he's suddenly shoved aside by a familiar face. Gran tells him to get lost, declaring it's his turn now. He steps forward, facing the instructor and the shattered golem. He arrogantly demands she raise the monster's difficulty level. Hannah calmly warns him that he might regret that decision. But Gran just scoffs, telling her to do as he says. The instructor simply agrees, her expression unreadable. The golem reforms, now a max-level battle monster. Because of course it does. Gran just smirks, completely unfazed by the upgrade. He gathers his magic, saying this is how it should have been. He unleashes a torrent of magical energy. The familiar fiery dragon spell hurtles towards its target. The attack connects, engulfing the golem in a massive explosion. Rain watches on, realizing Gran is even stronger than before. Gran smirks, dismissing the golem as a trivial threat. But as the smoke clears from his attack, the golem stands completely unscathed. Hannah notes that a full 20 seconds have already passed. The golem advances, ignoring Gran's frantic, useless attacks. It raises a massive stone fist, ready to end the fight. Gran panics, trying to use his family name to intimidate a rock monster. Bold strategy. The golem responds with a devastating punch. Gran is sent flying across the training hall. He lands in a heap, his pride and body thoroughly broken. The golem looms over him, preparing for the final blow. Snow rushes forward, begging the instructor to stop the test. But Hannah explains that an adventurer must always face danger. Rain watches on, his expression grim and serious. The instructor believes Gran chose this reckless path himself. Snow warns that if Hannah won't stop it, she will. She can't call herself a proud adventurer if she lets him die. She gathers her magic, preparing another ice spell. A powerful ice spear hurtles toward the golem, but the attack shatters harmlessly against its stone hide. It barely even leaves a scratch on the monster's leg. Hannah reveals her golem has the power of a B-rank adventurer. Snow realizes that defeating it is impossible for a new student. The golem's fist descends, ready to crush the fallen bully. Snow can only watch in horror, unable to intervene. Rain remembers Alice's warning not to stand out. So much for that plan. He leaps into action, blocking the massive fist with his sword. Snow can only stare, stunned by his incredible strength. Even Hannah is in disbelief that he stopped a max-level attack. The other students recognize him as the rumored prodigy from the exam. He tells himself this is an emergency, so he has no choice. He shifts into an offensive stance, ready to end this. With a powerful upward slash, he pushes the golem back. He unleashes one of Rico's signature moves. The golem's head is sliced clean off its shoulders. Snow can only stare, completely lost for words. The other students are in awe, wondering what they just witnessed. Rain looks back, realizing he might have overdone it. Again, he remembers Alice's strict order to lay low, and how badly he's failed. Snow is still trying to process the impossible sight. Rain catches his breath, relieved the danger is over. He notices cracks from Snow's ice spell on the golem's remains. Snow quickly thanks him, claiming her spell made it an easy win. She's clearly flustered, trying to cover for his display of power. The other students buy her story, still calling Rain a genius. Snow grabs his hand, pulling him away from the crowd. Rain apologizes, feeling bad for dragging her into this. But she gets close, vowing to uncover the true extent of his power. He quickly changes the subject, suggesting they get Gran to the infirmary. But Hannah calmly states that she'll take care of it. She summons small golems to carry the unconscious bully away. Talk about full service. The school day finally comes to an end. Rain walks with Snow, remarking on what a wild first day it's been. She asks why he's sticking around with her. He shows her his blade, explaining it was chipped in the fight. He figures it's time to get himself a new sword. Snow offers to guide him since he's new to the city. They arrive at a building with a sword and shield emblem. She proudly presents the weapons shop she always uses. Rain looks on, a little worried this place might be too expensive. Snow assures him that while the prices are high, the quality is guaranteed. The shopkeeper immediately recognizes Snow, while Rain nervously checks his wallet. The man greets them with a warm smile, asking how he can help. Snow explains they're here to find a new weapon for her friend. The shopkeeper teases her, asking if Rain is her boyfriend. Snow gets completely flustered, vehemently denying the accusation. Real smooth. The man just laughs it off, apologizing for his assumption. But his gaze turns serious as he assesses the boy before him. Snow vouches for Rain's skill, and the shopkeeper agrees he has a good eye for talent. Suddenly, the man senses an immense power radiating from the boy. He sees a vision of a powerful warrior standing right behind Rain. Snow asks what's wrong, but the shopkeeper dismisses it as his imagination. Rain, oblivious, continues to browse the selection of blades. Snow asks if he's found anything he likes, and he confirms he needs a one-handed sword. She immediately geeks out, explaining the magical properties of various weapons. Who knew the princess was such a weapons nerd? Rain is left trying to decide between the impressive options. Elsewhere, a scarred man studies a crude drawing. He recognizes the figures, a silver-haired woman and a man with a scar. It's Alice and Rico. Back at the shop, Snow is glad he's finally found a good sword. But his wallet is now completely empty. A worthy sacrifice. As they walk, Rain offers to thank her for her help. Snow has an idea of how he can repay her. A duel. She's determined to see the true extent of his power. Rain hesitates, but their conversation is cut short. A group of thugs blocks their path, led by a hulking brute. The leader recognizes Snow as a noble from the Charlil family. Snow demands to know who they are and what they want. Rain steps forward, asking what business they have with him. The leader grins, saying he just wants to have a little chat. His men ready their weapons, making their hostile intentions perfectly clear. Rain tells Snow to stand back, assuring her he can handle this. He grips his new sword, seeing this as a perfect test run. The leader scoffs at the academy students, readying his massive axe. He brings the weapon down, demanding Rain show some respect. But Rain blocks the heavy axe with his new blade, completely unfazed. He unleashes a flurry of strikes, overwhelming the brute with sheer speed. The leader's axe is sent flying, his men disarmed in an instant. Rain tells him that respect isn't something you get just for being older. But another thug tries to attack him from behind. A classic mistake. A flash of steel cuts through the air. Rain shifts into a defensive stance, a move taught by Rico. The thug is sent flying back by the force of the parry. He can only stare in shock at the boy's raw power, and with a final blow, he's knocked unconscious. The alley is now littered with defeated thugs. Another one of the goons looks on in absolute terror. He panics, claiming this wasn't what he was paid for. Snow compliments Rain on his impressive display. She deals with her own opponent with a swift, decisive kick. The thug is completely knocked out by the impact. He collapses to the ground, the fight over in seconds. Rain returns the compliment, equally impressed by her skill. Snow gives him a confident, knowing smile. Now only the leader remains, cornered and terrified. He begs for mercy, claiming they were only hired for the job. Snow is unimpressed, asking if that excuse will save him. She reminds him that drawing a weapon comes with consequences. The brute screams and makes a desperate attempt to flee, but Rain's blade moves in a blur. He stops just short of the man's neck, saying he's just kidding. Classic hero move. The brute is left a crying, terrified mess on the ground. Snow suggests they leave the rest to the city guards, but Rain already has a good idea who's behind this. The scene shifts to the Grand Spencer family estate. A voice calls out, begging for his brother's help. Inside, a man sits by the bed, clearly disturbed. He turns, his face a mask of pure contempt for his sibling. A woman lies in the bed, weeping in her sleep. At the door stands a bruised and beaten Gran Spencer. His older brother asks what business he has here. He reminds Gran he already pulled strings to get him into the academy. Gran clenches his fist, trying to explain his humiliation. He claims he only lost because Rain used some dirty trick. The brother dismisses his whining about the country boy. He asks if Gran expects him to clean up his mess. He grabs his younger brother, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Gran can only stare, confused by his brother's cruelty. The older brother sneers that Gran only lost because he's weak. He follows his words with a brutal, punishing blow. Gran's face contorts in agony from the impact. He collapses, gasping that this is all his fault. The brother rages that Gran's failure has shamed their entire family. Gran can only beg him to stop the relentless assault. Finally, the brother stands over him, calling him pathetic. He declares that sin requires atonement, which has now been paid. Gran realizes with dread who will be next on the list. Back in the present, Snow offers to help Rain get his own payback. Rain just asks how she likes his new sword. Smooth deflection. The two walk together, now a familiar sight at the academy. Snow gets flustered by his simple words of thanks. But their conversation is interrupted by another group of students. Their leader is a tall, arrogant man with a posse in tow. Snow recognizes him instantly, Bajesto Spencer. He confirms his identity, introducing himself as Gran's older brother. He steps forward, his intentions clearly hostile. He ignores Rain, focusing all his attention on Snow. She tells him she's already refused his advances many times. But he continues to pressure her, his words dripping with condescension. Snow stands her ground, firmly rejecting his offer. Bajesto just laughs, completely unfazed by her refusal. His gaze then shifts, landing squarely on Rain. He accuses Rain of being the one who humiliated his younger brother. One of his lackeys immediately gets in Rain's face, ready for a fight. But Bajesto holds up a hand, telling his friend to stand down. He decides to let it go for now, a silent threat hanging in the air. With that, the group turns to leave the tent scene. The lackey calls after his brother, clearly not finished. Bajesto looks back, his patience clearly wearing thin. Rain concludes that this guy is not the reasonable type. Snow warns him to be careful, saying Bajesto has a bad reputation. Later, Snow makes her way up a grand staircase. She looks up, surprised to find her path blocked. Bajesto is waiting for her at the top of the stairs. Of course he is. He notes that they seem to keep running into each other. He tells her not to be so cold, as if he's not the problem. He brings up her famous title, the Silver Sword Princess. He challenges her to a duel to prove who is truly the strongest. Snow listens, her expression unreadable but firm. After a moment of silence, she accepts his challenge. Bajesto smirks, pleased that she agreed so easily. She explains that she has a policy of never refusing a duel. With her blade at her side, she stands ready for the fight. A crowd gathers to watch the two prodigies face off. Bajesto's friends are confident their leader will easily win, but Rain pushes his way through the onlookers. He looks on, clearly worried for his new friend. He calls out to Snow, asking what's happening. She calmly confirms that she and Bajesto are having a duel. Rain can only stare, stunned by the sudden turn of events. Bajesto notes the large crowd, enjoying the attention. Nothing like an audience for your ego. Snow asks for the rules of their engagement. The winner is decided by knockout or surrender, with no intentional injuries. With the terms set, Bajesto readies his gauntlets. He powers up his weapon, declaring the fight has begun. He unleashes a powerful ranged attack with his fist. A blast of pure force hurtles through the air. Snow is caught off guard by the unexpected technique, but she manages to deflect the blast with her sword. She's stunned he can create such an attack with a simple punch. Bajesto unleashes another volley, pressing his advantage. Snow is forced back by the relentless barrage. She dodges another blast, her focus absolute. Seeing an opening, she closes the distance between them. She lunges forward with a powerful, decisive thrust, but her blade shatters against his hidden earth magic armor. He smirks, preparing a magical counterattack of his own. A massive stone fist erupts from the ground beneath her. Snow can only look up in horror at the sudden trap. The attack connects, sending her flying across the arena. Bajesto sneers, impressed she survived his attack. She clutches the hilt of her broken sword, refusing to back down. The blade shatters into 1,000 tiny pieces. Snow realizes he's using powerful earth magic to augment his attacks. Bajesto clenches his gauntlet, ready for the next round. He unleashes a rapid-fire series of sonic punches, but Snow counters, erecting a solid wall of ice to block the assault. He grows frustrated, deciding a direct hit is the only way. Snow forms a sharp projectile from the ice on her broken hilt. She fires the makeshift ice bullet straight at his head, but he shatters the attack with a single contemptuous punch. The ice explodes into a cloud of glittering shards. He's caught off guard as a stray piece of ice nicks his eye. Seizing the opening, Snow unleashes a massive fist made of solid ice. The attack connects squarely with his face. Now that's a cold punch. The force of the blow sends him staggering backward. His gauntlet clatters uselessly to the ground. He spits out a curse, blood dripping from his lip. Snow notes that it was a perfectly logical counterattack. From the sidelines, Gran calls out to his brother in disbelief. Bajesto screams at him to shut his mouth. Family support at its finest. He turns back to Snow, surrounded by ice wolves she's summoned. The crowd murmurs, shocked that a younger girl is dominating him. Bajesto's eyes burn with pure, unadulterated rage. He lets out a roar as his earth magic encases his body in stone armor. Snow grits her teeth, realizing the fight just got much harder. She prepares another attack, summoning a powerful ice spear. But Bajesto just laughs, his new armor making him feel invincible. He gets right in her face, mockingly calling her a genius. He grabs her ice spear with his bare stone-covered hand, and with a single flex of his fingers, he shatters her spell completely. The ice spear explodes into a cloud of glittering shards, but Snow's eyes burn with an unyielding fire. Bajesto taunts her, asking if that's her best shot. She points out that he's not exactly unscathed either. He just smirks, saying her attacks are not enough. He slams his fist down, ready to end this farce. Snow braces herself, sensing a powerful spell building. Sharp pillars of rock erupt from the ground around her. Bajesto leaps high into the air, preparing his final move. He gloats that his power is on another level entirely. He brings his fist down with the force of a meteor. The ground shatters under the overwhelming impact. He lands, confident that the duel is finally over. Snow's voice calls out, admitting her defeat. But as he turns, she lunges for his unprotected back. He's stunned, realizing she used high-speed magic. The Snow he struck shatters. It was an ice clone. A classic misdirection. The real Snow appears behind him, her trap sprung. She weaves a spell ready to end the fight. With her broken hilt to his back, she demands his surrender. But Bajesto just laughs, saying that's not an option. Snow is confused by his sudden confidence. His lackey has taken a hostage, a knife to her throat. Well, so much for a fair fight. Rain and the other students can only watch in horror. Bajesto threatens the girl's life if Snow makes a move. Snow can only call him what he is, a coward. He grabs her face, his stone armor digging into her skin. He throws her to the ground like a broken doll. He gloats that his magic seems to be working just fine. He raises his fist, ready to deliver the final dishonorable blow. Snow struggles to her feet, bruised but defiant. Bajesto admits her refusal to surrender is what he likes about her. He crushes his own gauntlet, his patience clearly gone. He declares that hurting strong women is his life's purpose. What a charming fellow. But his final blow is stopped by an unexpected hand. He looks down, annoyed by Rain's sudden intervention. He tries to pull away, but the boy's grip is like a vice. Bajesto is stunned by the sheer power in Rain's grasp. Rain declares that Snow can no longer fight, so the duel is over. Snow looks up, weakly calling out his name. She tries to stand, insisting she can still continue, but Rain catches her, supporting her exhausted body. Bajesto scoffs, annoyed he hasn't finished her off yet. Rain asks what he could possibly have against Snow. The bully explains that she's more respected than he is. He rants that the world revolves around him and his desires. Someone's got a main character complex. Rain's expression darkens with a cold, simmering rage. Bajesto sneers that a commoner couldn't possibly understand. He offers Rain a chance to atone for his insolence. Rain asks if that's really all he has to say. He gently lays Snow down, noting that pain is a universal language. Bajesto points, telling Rain to deliver a message for him. But Rain stands, saying he has a message of his own first. He declares that even if Bajesto saves him, he won't return the favor. The bully can only stare, confused by the strange threat. The scene shifts to the quiet, sterile infirmary. Snow awakens sometime later, her body aching. She sits up, trying to piece together what happened. Rain is there, asking if she remembers losing the fight. He tells her to rest, her wounds are healed, but not her strength. Snow apologizes, her face covered in bandages. Rain realizes they used a hostage to win the duel. She explains she saw the hostage girl crying after the fight. He had found her, terrified by what had happened. He apologizes for not realizing the situation sooner. Snow just smiles, glad that he's okay, but she blames herself for the loss, wishing she were stronger. She resolves to become powerful enough to prevent this again. Rain asks why she's so fixated on becoming stronger. He wonders if it has something to do with her family name. She snaps back, telling him it's none of his business. But she quickly softens, unable to push him away. She begins to explain the history of the Charlille family, a long line of powerful adventurers with high expectations for her. Rain is stunned, realizing SS rank is the pinnacle of power. He remembers his own mentors, both legendary SS rank heroes. A pyramid of power, with SS rank at the very top. Alice explains that A rank and above are an elite few, and SS rank is an even smaller, more exclusive club. The pressure must be immense. He tells her not to worry. As their student, he'll reach that rank. But for her, failure is simply not an option. He can see the strength burning in her eyes. He asks if she's crying out of frustration. Elsewhere, a man in a suit studies the duel's footage. Rain tells her to rest, reminding her that tomorrow is another day. She wipes away a tear, agreeing with a small smile. With his friend taken care of, Rain leaves the infirmary, but his path is blocked by a familiar, unwelcome face. Bajesto greets him with a condescending, threatening smirk. Rain just sighs, clearly tired of this guy's whole deal. Bajesto roars, enraged by Rain's cryptic words. He twists the threat, claiming he's decided to save Rain as well. His younger brother steps forward, issuing a challenge on Bajesto's behalf. Rain points out that Bajesto could have just asked him himself. A very valid point. The brother scoffs, telling Rain not to run away from the duel. Rain's hand clenches into a tight, angry fist. He scoffs at the very idea of running away.